Welcome to the International Schools Podcast, where we discuss all aspects of technology and life in international schools, with new episodes live every 2 weeks. This podcast is sponsored by Apps Events. We're a Google for Education partner and active since the launch of Google Apps for Education in 2006. We're a team of former educators and all experts in helping schools integrate Google into their schools and their classrooms. All training is customized for each school, and we make sure it has a lasting impact. Literally thousands of educators worldwide have earned their Google Educator Certification with us with our certification boot camps, and these take place every month and get your staff certified quickly. We also host Google Summits, which are fun 2-day conference-style events with concurrent sessions and keynotes delivered by experienced Google trainers, teaching on a broad range of topics using G Suite both in the classroom and in the school. Check it out over at appsevents.com, and we can bring any of these events to your school, which is an amazing way to build a Google community amongst your staff to support each other, plus to increase the profile of yourself and your school. The podcast is also brought to you by Acer for Education. People ask us what Chromebooks we recommend for schools, and after trying them all quite literally, we always recommend Acer. We've been to Acer headquarters in Taiwan to be part of product discussions, and they're genuinely the best thought out, most cost-effective, and most importantly durable devices out there. They're always innovating, including the first tablet running Chrome and the first convertible touchscreen Chromebook. The latest version of this is a Spin 11, which has a stylus and 2 cameras, and we highly recommend it for schools. They of course have a full range of Windows laptops, and for esports fans, their Predator range is second to none. If you'd like more information, please just leave your email over at gg.gg/Acer Education. That's gg.gg/Acer Education, and we'll get right back to you. And now, on to the interview. Hello and welcome to the International Schools Podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be talking to Sethi De Clerq. Sethi is an educator based in Bangkok. I've known for a while. He speaks a lot of Apps Events summits, and he's also a very successful EDU YouTuber. He runs the Apps Events YouTube channel as well as his own YouTube channel, which we'll get into. So Sethi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Great. So, well, look, just before we get started, I just want to mention we are running some online training right now. And if you go to appsevents.com, you can see everything. The first thing is we're running Google Educator Bootcamps online. It's a really low price, and the way we're structuring it is it's going to be over 6 Hangouts. So we did it so it's manageable. It's like an hour and a half each one. So for most people, they can somehow squeeze that in. But every lesson is recorded. So if you miss any lesson for any reason, you can still, fulfill the course. It includes exam vouchers, and we're being super flexible. So if you need a retake, we'll give you a free voucher for as many times as you need to pass the exam. Not that you're going to need it, and you can become Google Educator Level 1 certified. Also, if you'd like to do one at your school, like we can do it completely custom. Like maybe you want to block off a full Saturday for your teachers or 2 half days or whatever you want. Get in touch. Dan at appsevents.com, Dan at appsevents.com, and we'll do that. Second thing, and Sethi is involved in this, we are running 2 summits on the 14th of April. We're doing one that is good for East Coast US and Europe and Middle East, and one that is good for Asia and Middle East. Completely free, all focused on teaching online. It's supported by Acer, of course, as are all our events. Sethi, you're going to be presenting. What are you going to be talking about on the summit?
Yeah, we're going to be looking at some video creation and how we can sort of start creating our own content and share it with our students at no costs. Because obviously everyone is at home now, so we want to make it as easy as possible for everyone to just start sharing content.
Definitely, and that's great. We're going to have that session, a load of other cool ones. We've got stuff on like high level, like what's a good way to structure your online teaching for a school? Ben Rouse and James Say are really good at that. We're going to look at Google Meet, a bit of Google Classroom, even some Zoom, some non-Google tools. So really good. Obviously sponsored by Acer. Please join us. If you go to appsevents.com, you can sign up, and it's completely free. So definitely take advantage of this. Cool. So on to the interview, like Sethi. So before we get into the YouTube stuff, which I know people are interested in, like I want to get into your background and how you ended up in Bangkok. Like what was your background? Were you a teacher beforehand, or how did you come to
Yes, I'm originally from Belgium, and I was teaching in Belgium as well. And I sort of decided after couple of years to sort of try to give back. And then I decided, okay, well, I'm going to go and do some volunteer work, and then ended up in Thailand, worked in the orphanages for about a year and a half. And then obviously, well, you can't volunteer forever.
Yeah.
So I ran out of money and said, well, it's either back home, back into teaching, or back into teaching, but stay here. And so then I decided to just stay. And so that's what happened. And then started at an international school and just absolutely loved it, because I was able to do what I was doing back home while still being here in a
What was your
country I
first job?
absolutely
Like,
loved.
what was the first job you got at an international school?
That would have been a reception class teacher. So that's what I was doing back home. So back home, I was a reception teacher as well as an Edtech integrator. And so I kept that one quiet for a couple of years, because I was doing the reception teaching, and I was sort of, getting into, working as an expat teacher.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of years, they needed some help with internet systems and the network. And I was like, well, I've got a background in this and this. And so slowly drip fed a bit of information there, and then was given more responsibilities.
Why didn't you do that upfront? Like, didn't you want to get into? You want to just focus on the teaching? You didn't want the hassle in the beginning, or what was the reason you didn't try to get into the tech
Well,
stuff?
I just absolutely love being in the classroom and working with students. And so I really wanted to focus on that, because I was also still doing some volunteer work in the weekends. And so the Edtech would have completely taken over the weekends, and then I would not have had as much time to go and volunteer. So I tried to balance that, and then I decided, okay, I'm just going to put all my time and effort into teaching first, because that's what I'm a teacher first. And I just love being in the classroom.
Yeah. So, and are you still at the same school, or how did things move on from there?
Yeah, I'm still at the same school, because I would say it feels like I've been at 5 different schools, but it's always been the same school, because it started really small, and in the last 10 years, that school has just grown tremendously. When we started, we only went up to year 3.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of the top, the oldest students. Now we go all the way up to year 9. There's an additional makerspace. There's an entire EdTech department. We have all our, Chromebooks are in place. There was nothing in place the first couple of years. So it's been just an amazing journey.
And what's your role now in the school?
Now I'm still teaching, but I'm now based in the makerspace. So I'm really focused on digital design and just design thinking, makerspace activities. And then in addition to that, I'm also still doing the EdTech integration.
Right. So you are like the EdTech integration person for the school as well. So how does that work? Like, do you not have a full teaching load to do that, or do you just end up doing that evenings and weekends? Or how does it work?
Yeah, so being in the makerspace, it's a very different. So I have a full timetable.
Yeah.
But the EdTech, because we're such a small school, it doesn't take up that much time. I mean, it does right now, because everyone's at home and everyone's obviously, trying to get as much, information as possible. But it's actually been really good in a sense that it's kept me motivated to keep learning new things, because every week I'll present something to our, to all the other teachers, or we'll discuss during planning different topics that we're trying to cover, and then they'll ask, well, how can I do this, and how can I bring this into that topic? And so then I'll give them little tips or little tricks.
How do you find it in Bangkok? I mean, it's just we always talk a bit about what it's like to live in a city. Obviously, we'll get into the current situation, but I mean, I love Bangkok. I took my family out, as you know, last year. We stayed for 2 months. Probably would stay somewhere a little bit less central next time. It was tough with small children, but still we had a great time. But how do you find it as a place to live? You presume you like it. You've been there a long time, but how do you describe it? Like, as a high level view, like for expats coming to think and teach there, how would you kind of describe it as a place to live?
I think Bangkok it's so big that there's something for everyone. There's just, like you said, you stayed sort of downtown. We live in the suburbs, which is not as busy, but it still has everything. So Bangkok is one of those places where if you're willing to look for it, or if you're willing to go out, you can find what you're after. If you want to go to the cinema, you can go to the cinema. If you want to go for a nice meal, you can go for a nice meal. If you want European food, it's available. If you're more of, if you want some Asian food, well, they'll have it. There's Mexican, there's anything that you sort of, all these little luxuries that people always talk about, like back home, this, and I miss this from home. Well, you can find it in Bangkok. It's here, and just transport is so easy. If you don't drive yourself, well, just jump in a taxi. Now you are going
Well,
to
hang
have
on.
to
Let's,
have the
let's,
time. You
I'm
are
going
going to
to
have the
agree on
time.
that point. Like, if you live on a SkyTrain and where your work or social activities are on a SkyTrain, it's easy. If you're saying traffic, like, traffic's crazy. Like, there's no
No, traffic is horrendous, but transport itself is easy. It's easy to get anywhere. You just need to be willing to sit in a taxi for an hour, because
yeah,
the traffic is
exactly.
terrible.
Yeah, you get
But you
a
can get
car.
anywhere. You can get a taxi anywhere.
Yeah, I mean now, I was always Uber in Bangkok. Now it's Grab, which is, it's not as good as Uber, but it's still not bad. And like, James was saying, like, James Sayer, who obviously works with us at Apps Events, Bangkok, if you get it wrong and you just end up at the time when everyone's out, and it can be on a weekend, it's not like weekends are always quiet. Like, you can spend 20 minutes at a traffic light sometimes, like, if you're really
Yeah,
unlucky.
I've had that. I've missed the U-turn, and just right, that's another hour, just because of
Exactly.
missing a single U-turn.
Yeah, but you're
So
right. I
yeah,
mean,
that does
that's
happen.
exactly
But
what I'm going to
if
be
we
saying.
were to just get out and jump on a motorbike taxi, well,
Yeah.
we'd be there in no time.
Well, if you're scared, yeah, exactly. I think it's a bit of a risking your life situation in those motorbike taxis. But
Yeah.
but everyone's got different risk tolerance. I mean, I know people who use exclusively motorbike taxis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've used them a lot. I mean, not as much now. I mean, with two young children, obviously, you don't want to take as many risks, but
Yeah,
they are very convenient at times.
definitely. And how are you dealing with the current situation in your school? Like, are you teaching online, and are you helping coordinate the effort of the school?
Yeah, so we are all at home. We're teaching online. We have a reduced timetable, but we have tried to balance it depending on the age group of the students that we're working with. So our early years teachers, the first 2-3 weeks, they did no live teaching online. And it was just to get everyone into the habit of, okay, we're at home, but we're still doing some fun activities, some learning activities. Now they're introducing a little live session for that age group. Now, the middle school and upper school has had live sessions right from the beginning. And that's just, one check-in, a full hour with the different topics or subjects. So for example, they have a timetable, they get a timetable, and on a Monday, they know they can meet with, teacher 1, teacher 3, and teacher 4. And then if they have any questions about the content or about the activity set, they can drop into those sessions.
Got it.
That's when those teachers are available. Now, we are still available, via text or email the entire day, but we are face-to-face live at those times.
And do you have any kind of learning management system? Is it just Google Classroom, or using something different?
Yeah, well, as a Google school, so everything's G Suite at our school. So we went with Google Classroom, which makes it much easier. But we also have Firefly. Now, Firefly is an incredibly useful platform, especially for our early years and middle school. It's a bit more closed off, and only our school community has access to that. So that's where videos go for the early years and the middle school, or the teachers that are not that confident having their face out in public. Well, then they can just put it on Firefly. Parents see it, but it's not on YouTube. It's not on a public forum.
Got it. Great. So let's go on to YouTube, because that's fascinating for me. Now, obviously, like I mentioned, you run Apps Events channel. You've got your own channel. Like a lot of people listening to this, we always talk about teacher entrepreneurs, educator entrepreneurs, people that want to have like something on the side. It could be to make money. It could be just to promote themselves and learn and make more contacts. There's a lot of motivations people have, but YouTube ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of people, and it's kind of it's like a hot topic. Like, people are really interested in it. I think people see, all these guys like PewDiePie and Casey Neistat and all these other YouTubers people follow, and they want to do it. So and you've done it. You've had some success in the education area. So I guess the first question is it still is it still possible? I mean, it's a very saturated market. There's loads of videos. Is it still possible to make content that stands out and build an audience?
Absolutely. I mean, YouTube is the world's second largest search engine. And when we look at different generations, well, then it might actually be the first search engine for that generation. So depending on your target, there will be a group waiting for content on YouTube.
Yeah. And
So any content, if it's something that you're passionate about and you want to share it, well, why not try it? And eventually you'll find a community, you'll find a group.
yeah. Let's start from the real beginning. Like, how would someone thinking about this get started? What are the things they should think about?
I think the main thing is just get started. I think too many people hesitate and wait, and they say, well, I need the perfect camera, I need the perfect microphone, I need to understand about video editing first. Oh, no, I don't know how to present myself. Just get started, because unless you get started, you won't learn those things. And that camera and that microphone and that, don't worry about that. I mean, the phone in your pocket is an incredibly powerful device, and just get started with that. If you're passionate, people will pick up on that. And it's like training. I mean, when you're in front of a group of teachers, it doesn't matter if it's 5 teachers or 50. If you're passionate about something, they will take that home, and they will be interested, and they'll want to find out more about it. It's the same in your classroom. If you walk in and you're going to deliver an incredibly boring topic to your students, well, make sure that you are passionate about it, because otherwise it's going to be a dull lesson.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and you've got to focus on, like, people can get so focused on numbers. Like, I mean, I followed what you said with the podcasting, and I'm going to record an episode about starting a podcast, actually, because it's an interesting topic as well. But I learned by doing it. Now I've got a decent mic, and I've got an analog to digital converter, and I'm looking at buying some new stuff. It's moving. But in the beginning, I just recorded it sometimes on my phone. I mean, I still do sometimes. If I meet someone out and I want to record a chat, I'll just get the phone out. I mean, it's a great voice recorder. I've got a Pixel 4 XL. It's really good.
Yeah.
Voice recorder. But you're right. Unless you do it, you never. Because also you don't know until you do it if you actually enjoy it. You might just think, oh, this is just too hard, and you don't want to do it, But once you do it, you learn that,
Yeah, exactly. And it's like what you said, like people, they see these big YouTubers, but then really have a think about how long have they been on the platform? Well, probably for years. And how many videos have they made? Well, thousands. They've made thousands of videos. Go back to their very first video and see if you like that video. Probably not. It's probably terrible, because everyone's first videos are terrible.
Yeah.
But they did something that many people don't. They just got started.
Sure. And also, I think the numbers, you've got to remember that, like if you're in a niche, like, obviously we're in education, that's what education technology is, our area of interest, and specifically Google is our main area within that. Like, you don't need have millions of views. You just want, people who share your passion and are really into it. Like, the podcast in the beginning, when I did the first episodes, I had 20, 30. And then you think, first of all, I got a bit disheartened, but then you think, wow, that's 20, 30 people who I've never met before, who are listen to my podcast, who are into the same thing I am. And like a couple of them emailed me, and then you're like, wow, it does mean something. And then, then you get to 100 and 1,000, and still, it's small numbers relative to any big podcast, but it's 1,000 people that have the same interest, which is cool.
Yeah, and I think that's key as well. If you are serious about content creation in general, so podcast, video, whatever you're going to build or create, know your target audience and then find them where they are. So some people, they'll be listening to podcasts, others will be on YouTube. Maybe that's not where your demographic or target audience is. Maybe they are on one of these other platforms. Maybe they are on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn video is huge. Some people are incredibly successful with LinkedIn video. It's not where my target audience, teachers, they are not on LinkedIn video, but there are people there as well.
Leadership it's interesting, like Twitter, Facebook, teachers are on YouTube, but if you look at leadership, they're all on LinkedIn. That's what I found.
Yeah.
And how would you like what kinds of content, like within education, like what kinds of stuff lend themselves well to YouTube? Obviously, what we do, Edtech and demoing software works well. Like what other kind of things do well on YouTube?
I think things, the fast-paced information. So I've seen some very successful educational channels where it's just tips from a teacher. I think I can't remember the name of the channel. I'll look it up. But it's a year 3 teacher, and she just shares quick 5-6 minute tips of what worked really well in the classroom that week. And it's just little things like that. And I think that is really, YouTube is the perfect platform for that.
Yeah. So let's say
people don't necessarily want to go and watch, a 2, 3, 4 hour stream.
Yeah, well, that's the
Those
thing.
are very dedicated people.
I do. I could put a video on YouTube, and I thought about it, and maybe I will, but it's just a conversation. Most people who listen to this are probably on their commute or driving, or they're just cleaning the house and they put it on in the background. So it's just two people talking. So I don't know. I don't know what you think. I mean, should I put a video on YouTube? Would it help?
I would, because I mean, if I'm honest, the way I use YouTube is I use it as a radio station as well, because I'll often have a tab open with something
I do
playing
put the
while I
content,
get
I
my
don't
work
have
done.
I just have an image. I don't have any video. So would you think
Yeah, so
more
that would work.
use it with video?
But the video, I think the video adds something, because you do sometimes move between tabs, and then you sort of pop in and you have a look, and it's alive. It's not just a static image, and the fact that it's alive makes it so much more. It makes it real,
Sure.
almost as if you're sat down with those people at the
Yeah.
same table.
Good point. So let's say I wanted to start a YouTube channel now, or someone listening. Like, how should I get started? Literally, what are the steps? Do I have to create a special account? Should I plan what I'm going to say? What about editing? Like, could you talk a bit about, like, let's just say someone wants to make their first YouTube video, set up a channel. Like, what do they have to do?
Well, the first thing I would think carefully about where your channel could end up going. So let's say that you become very successful. You want to make sure that you're also still safe. So the first thing I would do is create a separate Google account. Don't do it with your personal account. Don't do it with your school account. If you move schools, you lose that. If it's your personal account,
Great point.
you never know. You might leak something, and then people can come in, steal your channel, which happens.
Yep.
So you want to create a separate account. That's very important. You want to have it, separate from your personal account. As is also the advice we give at boot camps. We'll tell people, if you take the exam, take it with your personal account, because it's valid for a longer period of time than you might be at the school for. So that's the first step. Then you'll actually have to go to YouTube and create a channel. Now, even if you're not going to be creating content, go ahead and create that channel, because it allows you to create playlists with other people's content. So that means you can start selecting videos you think might be useful for your students or useful for your family members. And these can be private playlists. So you don't even have to make it public. But that's it's a good way of getting into the YouTube studio and getting familiar with all the buttons and the.
No, what's a YouTube studio?
The YouTube studio is basically where you're going to manage your channel. So you can compare it with, if you're a G Suite admin, then you have the admin console where you set up users and you set up all your permissions. Well, the YouTube Studio does that for your videos. So the YouTube Studio is where you upload videos, where you add descriptions, where you add tags, where you can get your links, where you can put it in playlists. So it's a way of managing your channel.
Can you also edit the video in YouTube Manager, whatever
it's
called?
You can, but it's very limited. It's
right.
very, very limited. The YouTube video editor it's basically just you can trim your video and that's it.
Right. So so let's say someone records a video. Obviously, you say they get their camera, they get it in a stable place where they can record themselves, or their laptop webcam or whatever they're using. Like, once they've finished, like, what are the next steps in terms of thinking about editing, thinking about getting on YouTube?
Yeah, I think the biggest time consumer will be the editing. Yeah. So editing a video takes time. Make sure that you use an editor you are comfortable using, and that will be a different one for everyone. Don't just try to dive into DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere if you have zero experience with video editing. Just start small and just gradually build up.
What's a good basic editor? What would you recommend a good starting point as a simple editor?
Well, it really depends on the content. It really, like, for example, for our type of content with lots of screen recording, Camtasia is brilliant. Because it's a screen recorder. It's not a very powerful video editor, but it has an editor that does enough to get a tutorial video out. If you're looking at more advanced editing, well, then you might want to look at a Movavi editor or Filmora. That's sort of a step up from that. And then once you're limited in what you can do with Filmora, then you might want to consider Final Cut Pro, which is brilliant, but again, it's Mac only, so that's the only problem there. If you're on a Windows, then you can't use Final Cut Pro, but then you have DaVinci Resolve and Adobe Premiere. Those are more advanced video editing.
What is the best or simplest web-based one that someone could use, for example, on a Chromebook?
That would be WeVideo.
WeVideo.
For as far as I'm aware, it's the only one.
Right.
So it's definitely, there's a market there. So if anyone is listening, there's a market for a decent video editor, Chrome-based.
Yeah, definitely. And what would you recommend? Someone's going to record a video. Like, what would you recommend in terms of preparation? Would you recommend scripting things out, planning the time, freestyling? Like, how would you approach that?
Again, it's a personal thing, but I wouldn't freestyle it. I would definitely have bullet points. If you don't want to script out the entire thing, have bullet points the same way that if you're interviewing someone, you have a couple of questions in your head that you're going to ask that person. Well, it's the same with a video. You have a couple of points that you have to hit or things that you want to discuss. Make sure you have those. You don't have to write them down, but you need to definitely spend, I mean, if you're going to record a 10-minute video, spend at least 20 minutes planning it.
Yep.
That would be sort of my advice.
Yeah, and you mentioned editing takes the most time. I mean, like, for example, with the podcast, I realized early on I wasn't going to do it. So fortunately, I've got one of my team, guy called X, and he does edit. So literally, when I finish recording this podcast, we're recording it in Hangouts Meet. That's a new thing, actually. It used to be Skype, but Google's released all the premium features, including recording, which is great. So I record the Hangout Meet. I put it in Drive. I share with X. I've got a Google Doc here with my questions and my points. I put it in the doc. I probably spend 10 minutes editing the points, and then I share the doc with X. And then he edits it. He uploads it to Podbean, which goes to, I put it on YouTube, puts it on Spotify, puts it on Apple Podcasts. So yeah. I'm a process guy. I've worked on the process of all I do is book the interviews and do the interview, and then that's it. Because I know myself, like I'm not an editing guy, it drives me nuts.
Well, that's the same for YouTube videos. If there's a lot of YouTubers out there that don't even touch their edits, and then there's others that just absolutely love it. They love playing around with the edits and getting creative. And I've learned so much about video editing my own videos, that I actually really enjoy it. And I'm still learning. Every day I learn something new. And I try to make every video just 1% better than the previous one.
Yeah.
And so over time, you can see that growth. And then I use that as well to demonstrate to my students and say, look, it's okay to fail at first. It's okay to just, not be perfect at something. Just be good enough and then just move forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is incredibly time consuming.
I guess you get faster and faster, though, don't you? The better you get.
You do get, and you get a system in place. So even for edits, the first time you make a video, it will take you forever. And then after a while, you learn the shortcuts. And then you start creating your own templates. And then you have some template files that you start off with. And then you have different assets that you can pull into your video that you've made for, let's say that you spend an hour making an asset for a video. Well, the next video, you can now just pull that in and you save that time. So over time, you do get faster.
Got it. So we've covered like the basics of recording an episode. We know how to do it in the YouTube studio. Like, what's the next step? Like, you've made a video, you put a basic edit, you've uploaded it. Like, how much time should you spend on promotion? And also, what are the kind of tips you would suggest to kind of promote it in the beginning?
Well, I think that the main thing is that be incredibly careful with promoting. I see too many people jumping into the comments, dropping a link to their video, dropping a link to their channel. Just be aware that those links and those comments, you might see them, but nobody else sees them, because YouTube automatically blocks that. So even when you drop a link on one of my videos, nobody will see that. You will be the only person that sees that link. Okay. So there's really no point in doing that. That's just spamming another channel. It doesn't work. If you really want to get your content out there, realize that YouTube is a search engine. It's a search engine. And so if you get your SEO spot on, if you get your keywords, if you get your description, and you get lots of text in there that is relevant to that video, you will get your content out there.
Right. And does YouTube, like, I guess if you have some success, does it automatically kind of give you more publicity for your future videos? Does it work like that?
Absolutely. So it looks at the average watch time. So for example, if somebody has a very enticing thumbnail and a title and people really, it draws you to that video and you click on it. But then when YouTube sees that the majority of the people leave after 5 seconds, well, then that video will no longer be promoted by YouTube, because YouTube is now seeing that, okay, maybe that was just clickbait.
Sure.
So we're no longer promoting that video. However, if they see that, let's say 40% or 20% of the people carry on watching it all the way to the end, well, then YouTube is going to promote that video. They're going to keep pushing it.
Do you think there's an element of just luck as well? Because if I'm looking at our channel right now, and so we had a really successful video you did, which is Google Meet for remote and online teaching. We're over 110,000 views, I think, at this point. But then the video we did before that, we had 800 views. So and is it just like that? Obviously, it's a good video, obviously, but all our videos are good. Do you think that was right place, right time, or do you think there's
that was definitely the right place, right time, and then the SEO was spot on. And so basically all the previous videos, like 800 views is really good for a channel that was the size we were at that point. Now we're bigger, so now we'll probably see similar views with new videos, and then hopefully over time it'll grow. Because that's important to note as well, is that YouTube is not, if you post a video today, depending on the type of content, it's going to grow differently. So if you're an educational channel, it's over time that you grow.
Sure.
Whereas if you're an entertainment channel, all the growth is seen when you post. So for example, when you look at that, when you mentioned PewDiePie, for example, he posts a video every single day. Why does he do that? Because he gets all his views during that first 24 hours that it's posted, and then the video dies. And it just slowly continues to gather a couple of views, but most views come from the subscribers, whereas we are an educational channel, so ours is the other way around. Most of our views come from people that are not subscribed. So that's just the nature of education. People come looking for an answer to a problem, they find it, and they leave. Whereas so people don't follow me, they just come for the content. Whereas a PewDiePie, they follow PewDiePie no matter what he posts.
Sure. That's a great point. Great point. What let's talk about money, because obviously people are thinking, it's a topic people don't want to talk about, but people might have dreams of making a full-time income with YouTube, or they might have dreams of making a side income. Like how does it, can you explain, can we start off with, like, how does YouTube monetization work, like from a kind of high level points?
So the basic monetization is it's advertisement. So if you've been on YouTube, then you will have seen advertisements. There are ads before videos, during videos, after videos. There are ads displayed down the side, and sometimes an ad down the bottom. Now, once you reach a certain size on YouTube, you can apply to become part of the what's called YouTube Partner Program.
What's the size? How big?
So you need to have at least 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours in the last month.
Right, got it.
So that's the sort of the cutoff. Then you can apply, and that's only applying. Now, that is very low. You're not going to earn anything from that. Just so that people listening, if they say, "Oh, I have 3,000 subs," that's nothing. You're not going to earn anything. It's that's peanuts. Because the way YouTube does that is they basically sell advertisements to advertisers. They sell it at a certain value, which is not publicly known, because every channel has a different CPM, which is a cost per mil. It's all very technical, but then the creator gets a cut, which is about a 50-50 split. Now, for large channels, like those YouTubers that are really well known, that is a very large amount, because they have millions and millions of viewers. And a lot of their viewers are on there watching multiple ads. If you say, for example, again, back to PewDiePie, he'll have 4, 5, 6 ads in a single video. So that's 4 or 5 different points of making money. And then he gets a 50% cut of that. Now, you need to be very big. So if there's any students that are asking you about, how can I become a YouTuber, and is this, can I have this as a career? Yes, but it's going to take years and years and years of just grinding and just making content before you're going to earn anything.
So what would you say? Okay, so let's say people want to start making, let's say if someone wants to make $100, $200 a month, like as a starting point, what kind of numbers? I mean, if you're going to, obviously you're going to make some big generalizations here, but how big would someone have to be before they could start making like even that kind of amount of money a month?
It's really difficult, because it depends on the content. It depends on the countries watching that content. It depends on how long they're watching the content. It depends. So all these factors are taken into consideration. So some countries have a very high CPM, other countries a very low CPM because advertisers don't pay as much for that country.
Right.
So if all your viewers are from a country that has a high CPM, then you might be hitting that hundreds with a couple thousand views. Whereas if a lot of your viewers are from a country with a low CPM where advertisements are cheap,
Sure.
then you're going to need a couple million viewers. So it's really hard.
What are the high CPM? Is it like US, Western Europe, places like that?
The high CPMs, again, depends on the content. So for educational content, it seems to sort of be, the UK, Canada, those countries have, relatively high CPMs, but the CPMs go up and down as well. So one example is, again, the comparison between educational channels and entertainment channels. Educational channels will earn next to nothing around Christmas time.
Sure.
Because all their views will drop, the CPMs will drop. Nobody's interested in an educational channel. However, an entertainment channel has their best time around Christmas because every advertiser is trying to get their toys and their latest products onto those channels. So it all fluctuates.
We've talked about the financial side of things, and obviously you can make some money out of this, but you need a decent size. What are some of the other benefits for educators to having a YouTube channel outside of financial benefits?
I would say the biggest benefit is exposure and just meeting new people, because the opportunities that will present themselves in terms of meeting other educators and getting just learning from them are incredible. So the people I've met, just from having my YouTube channel, I've met some amazing trainers. I've met some wonderful educators. I've learned so much just from having the channel and just learning from these people that I would tell every educator to get online. And I think all of us being home now and creating content, well, why not put that content on YouTube? Because that's what I needed. I was already making videos, but it was all private. And I just needed that one person to tell me, why not make it public?
Yep.
And then I did so. So I would recommend everyone to try it.
Sure. And do you how do people get in? I'm interested, how many people get in touch with you? Is it normally just in the comments, or do you get emails as well? What kind of communication do you get?
Yeah, so in your on your channel about page, you can add a business inquiry email, which I have. And so I do get, I would say, probably about
Do
3,
we have
4
that, by
emails
the
a
way?
day.
I'm checking the website now. See if we have it.
So I've got 3 or 4 emails a day. Often it's just people trying to, get an answer to a problem or a question they have. The comments, yeah, definitely. I would say if you want to try and grow your channel and create a community, then the more you can develop that comments area and have people also answer questions for each other, because that's really that's what you want. You don't just want to have this, I'm speaking to you, Dan, and getting an answer from you. No, you want a community to help each other, because there's so many educators watching your content. So why not all help each other in the comment section?
Yeah.
If you're worried about that, then you can always turn the comments off, but I would have them on and just moderate it, because there is sometimes, inappropriate language being used, and Google is really good at filtering it out, and you just delete it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I'll be interested if you've got any stories, because I think, I think it's important to say you do have to have a bit of a thick skin, because with this podcast, I've had overwhelming great feedback, and even when I was in the beginning and the audio was crap and everything was crap, people were like, yeah, well, good for trying, and now I get some good feedback, but I do get some people who are just I won't even repeat, but just they'll be super offensive, and they'll be just getting really angry, and in the beginning you're like, what, and you take it personally, but then I found after I got 3 of these, 4 of these, it's just these people are just, they've got an issue. It's not necessarily me. But I'm curious, can you give us any stories? Because I'm sure you've had, just because you're a much bigger audience, you probably had a lot more of these incidents.
Oh, there's so many. It's you need very thick skin. You don't take it personally, because it's the nature of the beast, isn't it? It's sort of, if you're going to put yourself out there, be ready to receive some hate. I mean, there's been some terrible comments. I mean, nobody sees these because YouTube automatically filters them for you, but you as a creator still see these comments. So you as a creator still have to approve or delete or flag these comments.
But what about a comment where like it might not be flagged by YouTube, but it's just kind of like, just a bit insulting or something? Do you just leave those in, or do you remove them if you get them?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not, I mean, because obviously I am aware of who's watching my videos, so I want to make sure that it's not inappropriate. Let's say
Yeah.
that a student would watch my video. Obviously, I'm not going to leave those comments on the comment
Yeah,
section.
yeah.
If it's just a criticism, absolutely no problem. I mean, if you didn't like something, or if you're saying that I'm going too fast or too slow, or that's absolutely fine. I mean, you need to be able to take some criticism.
Yeah, and those
Um,
what I found with those kind of comments is usually if you reply and say, "Okay, great comment, but should I do this?" And quite often you get a nice reply afterwards if you kind of
yeah,
send a nice response. Yeah,
yeah, I think there's a huge difference between, constructive feedback and people just shouting at you and swearing. And yeah, sorry, those are not going to be left on the channel. Not because I can't deal with it, but because I don't want to expose students and other teachers to that sort of language. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, definitely. Look, Seti, almost up to the end of the interview. Like, I guess anything else you've got to add? I mean, I guess my final point is like, what kind of are there any specific criteria like that, or any specific things you can do to kind of give yourself a better chance of getting more views? I mean, I went to one of your sessions on this, and you mentioned like just having your face on the cover image makes a difference. Like, anything like that you'd recommend that gives you a better chance of getting more views?
Yeah, I would say once you start creating content, have a look at your analytics. There's a lot of information that you get in that YouTube studio, and go with what works. So if you post, let's say that you've posted 5 videos and those 5 videos just have titles, and then you post 5 videos and those thumbnails all have your face in them. People relate to that. Well, you'll see that in the numbers. So you might have a click-through rate of 2% for the ones with the titles and 5% for the ones with the face. Well, then the numbers are telling you that the ones with the face work, no matter what your best friend tells you.
Yeah,
Because I think too often we send something to someone we trust or someone we like. We say, "Oh, what do you think of this? What do you think of this title? What do you think of this thumbnail?" And then they say, "Oh yeah, I would change this. I would change that." Yes, but then in the big picture, always go with what the numbers are saying. Because if there's thousands of people watching your video, the numbers will give you a very clear answer to your questions as to does this work or not. Whereas your
definitely.
best friend, it'll be a personal preference.
Definitely data-driven decisions. Sethi, that's a great
Yeah.
place to finish. Thanks so much for your time. I'll drop some links to your channel and the Apps Events channel there. Anything else you want to add before we finish?
Yeah, just get started. Just get started. Just try it. If it doesn't work, no problem. But just start now.
Great advice. Sethi, thanks very much, and look forward to talk again.
Thank you.